can you explain first why you're doing it in the way you're doing it, as opposed to just taking the existing law and striking the exemption for the legislature?
That existing law has been carefully developed over years by transparency advocates, all the attorneys that fight with them, and I didn't want to think we should do anything that unbalanced that might risk giving the attorneys that fight transparency a leg up by accident in any venue. And so in talking to Speaker Steele and his staff about it, I think we kind of came to the determination that it would be a lot easier and cleaner just to create a separate Legislative Open Records Act. And that also addresses the separation of powers issue, where it will be adjudicated in the legislative environment instead of in the executive or judicial environments. And that way the law probably couldn't be challenged on that merit.
What prevents a lawmaker, for instance, I know you have a personal email address as well as a legislative email address. I'm sure most, if not all, legislators have the same thing. If you, from your personal email address, talk with Representative McCullough to his personal email address from your personal computer or cell phone or whatever, are those communications covered under your bill?
I think those communications are probably more problematic as it relates to the open meetings component of this. So if a legislature sent out 55 BCCs to other legislators debating a piece of legislation and the debate occurred via personal email, I certainly think that could be problematic as it relates to the law, because they would be having a meeting of sorts as defined by the Act, potentially. And I might be careful about speaking that specifically, but just on instinct, that's where I think that'd be the biggest issue. The Act defines the records as the records that are in the legislature's possession. So many lawmakers do have house emails, and usually that is the point of contact that is public. But all of that is potentially discoverable under open records pursuant to the exceptions dealing with constituent communication. But there's, this is definitely something that over the years, if it went into law and that became more of a concern, perhaps we could look at.
I haven't fully read the bill to know what the answer to this question is, but obviously there are 69, I guess, House Republicans, and you caucus every Monday. Are those caucuses part of the Open Meeting Act?
I wish they were. I wish they were. The political reality is that it's difficult to not exempt caucuses. As a former city councilman, knowing the importance of never having 4 people on a 7-man board discussing business, that becomes institutionalized inside of you. And I can tell you that going into caucus just feels wrong, because it's a behind-the-scenes meeting where policy is very much being discussed. And I think in best practice and in good government that all public discussion of business by a public body should be transparent. The political reality is that we had to exempt it from day one in this bill.
You brought it up during the discussion of the bill, your background as a Guthrie City Councilman. So you've lived under the Open Record and Open Meetings Act for years in that capacity. Do you think that the concerns expressed by Representative McCullough, for example, are maybe, overblown? I'll let you use, your words, but that they're maybe making too much or have too many concerns about this?
I do think that those who have lived with open records and know its importance and open meetings are more likely to support it because they know it works and they don't fear it because they've lived with it. For those who come in from a different environment, which is great, you certainly don't want a legislature full of county commissioners or city councilmen or state agency people. For those who have that other world experience, they aren't as familiar with those laws, and so to them, they don't understand the importance just naturally because they haven't seen it firsthand. And so that's why having the legislature exempt has been very problematic, because a lot of legislators don't necessarily understand the importance of those laws just because they haven't lived under them or dealt with them much. But if certainly individuals coming in from either that municipal background, anything to do with the press, they know the vital importance of these laws, and I think you'll find some real advocates for the law with people with those backgrounds.
Regarding one of Representative Morissette's concerns, I have a little bit of experience of reporting a possible Open Meeting Act violation. The idea of about the legislature violating the Open Meeting Act, and I make that complaint to a legislative committee, seems somehow wrong, like the fox guarding the hen house, so to speak. How do you allay those concerns?
That was why you'll see a lot of focus in that legislation to transparent, open adjudication so that there is accountability and so that your complaint can't be swept under the rug and disappear, but you have your day in court, basically, before that committee, and they have to vote in a transparent manner where they're going to have to go back to their constituencies and be responsible for that vote. In this way, we address the separation of powers issue. And certainly from a political comfortability level, it makes it a more palatable issue for legislators to vote for, which I think is probably an important component of this bill that gives it a chance. But I was very insistent on the transparency language so that if your open records or open meetings complaint isn't addressed, this committee can adjudicate that and they take a vote on it. And I think that transparent vote actually discourages frivolous complaints too, because people may not want to go through that process of filing frivolous complaints when they know there's going to be a transparent process, that everybody's going to know what happened. The light of day will shine on the complaint itself. And I think that's a very important concept.
It was, got through this committee. I don't know that you have a crystal ball necessarily, but I know you do have the support of the speaker. In fact, I know he was here and actually voted on the measure and voted for the measure. Yeah. I'm assuming you think the bill will get heard in the House. Do you have any idea? Have you taken a straw poll, so to speak?
There's a lot of irony in that question. Not all legislators like the idea. It's politically hard to vote against. I think it passes the House. Senator David Holt's ready to run with it in the Senate. He's very courageous to do so, and we'll see what happens over there.